the SM Media Podcast Network.
Hi, folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Rangers Assessment, your SM Media Rangers podcast. I'm Scott McPike. It is always a pleasure to be your host, as always. And I'm joined, as always, to look back at another rough week. It's Scott Young. Mate, how are we? Just in life. Like, how's life?
Life's good. Football's no, but outside of that's decent. But what is there to say?
Quite a lot. It's just
I know we're sat here for an hour to say it, but
yeah, there's quite a lot to say. It's just I don't think much of it is going to be very I don't think much of it is going to be very good for a lot of people to hear. What I will say is that my thoughts on during the international break were pretty much exactly what everybody else's was. It was like, this isn't going to work. Even though the Celtic game gave me a wee bit of hope, I was still like, this is just not going to end well. I was not of the opinion that I think the board are still under that this is going to click. That being said, I expected something yesterday. I expected some hope. Now, we'll get into the game as a whole, but over the international break, there just wasn't that urge for me of like, it's been a rough start. I wasn't I wasn't convinced that this is, and I think you know me well enough by now to know that it takes a lot for me to come round that a manager has to go. I think you remember with
Mhm.
Clement, I was very much, this is bad. That he's in a bad position. Beale, I think I was different because I didn't really rate Beale to begin with. Gio, it took a lot for me to come round to that. Like even before then, like Pedro, Warburton. I remember in a conversation after the Hearts game with somebody and saying Warburton, like I would still give him time. Like, do you know what I mean? I've seen glimpses. It takes a lot for me to come round that a manager has to go, but you, I just don't see the evidence that this is going to work. I haven't seen what he's been brought in to do. That was before yesterday.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, I think my main issue from the Panathinaikos game, his first game, to now, even before the Panathinaikos game, you had the friendlies, the Bruges and Middlesbrough game, and that kind of thing, and we all kind of looked at it, oh, it'll take time. But there's been no progression from that Panathinaikos game to now, and that was it ended 23rd of July. I think the Panathinaikos game
yeah, it
was
was,
too
yeah.
far, wasn't he? And that's been what, 3 months,
Not
two
even
months,
two, not even two.
and let's say about 8 weeks, give or take.
Yeah,
And there's literally been zero progression from that Panathinaikos. I remember the first half against Panathinaikos, we were hopeless. Butland looked up. Butland was unbelievable, and the rest were pretty bad. And we thought, oh, that right, we know we'll take time. But there's been nothing from that game to now that's been any form of improvement.
there was 65 minutes against Poulsen, which I put down to. I put down to now that I think a couple of the players weren't like they were thrown in. They didn't have the response. But Ant Man being a perfect example. I thought Ant Man that day was amazing. I haven't seen it since.
We signed 24 hours before it.
Exactly, like you can say the same about Magoma. You can say that Miovski even to a degree. Miovski was in a couple of days, and you
Yeah.
could see. And then yesterday, I thought it was a bit weird. The big thing that we had, and we sat here with Jack before Martin was appointed, and what we all said was, wouldn't be for us, Martin, if he got the job. He has to start well, and that hasn't happened. That hasn't
No.
happened. I don't care what anyone says regarding why I think that Martin is getting the road by the board is he's made the comment very early on that I can. There's going to be short term pain, but it clicks, right? that was fine at his old clubs because there wasn't the pressure. There wasn't, even though no disrespect to the MK Dons, Swansea, and Southampton fans that will maybe watch this show, they're not anywhere near the atmosphere of a Rangers.
No,
You don't get that
no.
time. You don't get that road. And the new board had inherited a goodwill just by buying the club. Do you know what I mean? Just by
Yep.
buying the club, completely fresh start, completely new look. What they have to do is very simple. What they should have done probably after Bruges, maybe even before that, if you had that view. Every single person that I have spoke to is of the same view. The board have to admit they have made a mistake in appointing Russell Martin. If they admit it, if they admitted it before the Celtic game or during the international break, they would have been handed some leniency by the support because they have admitted to the mistake. What they are doing just now is they are kicking the can down the road, and Patrick Stewart's been here already. He should have fired Philip Clement after the Queen's Park game. He let it linger on until we had to sack him after St Mirren. This is going to happen again. And this board do not have should have seen this coming. They should have seen what has happened at Rangers over the past 3 years. They shouldn't have appointed him to begin with, but they had the chance to keep the goodwill or get a bit more goodwill by admitting we've made a mistake here and move on to the next guy. What they're doing just now is they are keeping this going. I dread to think what's coming up in the next 3 games. You get Hibs at home, Genk at home, and then you go to a place like Livingston where Rangers have never had a good record. And you're asking fans to stick with them. That is, this only ends one way, mate.
Yeah. I do want to cup. Obviously, you said a lot there. I think there's a lot to unpack there. I'll push back on something very slightly than is that Martin wouldn't get time. We've shown in the past, Steven Gerrard, for example, won one of his first 4 league games. But in those games, we were away at Pittodrie, which we really should have won the game, even though
Mm-hmm.
we would do it 10 men earlier, but by far the better team. Drew 3 each at Fir Park, again, better team. I think Goldson slipped for one of the goals, and it was a last minute hit for a corner. But again, we saw performances in those games. Celtic, we at Celtic Park. It was a foul. I think it was a foul on
Yeah, Rogic.
Jari in Miller Park
Yeah, I think it was Rogic and
before
yeah,
Cham scored, and
yeah.
even though Al McGregor was unbelievable that game, but again, that's results weren't there. But we all looked at it and thought there's something there.
That's another
There's
thing though. But I'll
nothing
let you
there
come.
with
I'll let
Russell
you come
Martin.
back. I'll let you come back, and I just want to bring this up really quickly. The difference with that though is, mate, there was goodwill with Gerrard. Gerrard's appointment was exciting. Fans were happy with Gerrard's appointment, and Gerrard didn't have the baggage of he's been in 3 jobs, and people have had the worries about Martin's philosophy. Right, I'll let you come back in, but I just wanted to say that Gerrard was an exciting appointment. Martin said it yesterday. The fans did not want him. We had to convince ourselves that Russell Martin was going to be the right guy for this job. I said it to a couple of weeks ago. I think I said it to you privately. I definitely said it to you publicly. If David Ancelotti, for example, who was the other guy in the running for the job, if he'd had this start, he would have gotten a bit more leniency for the simple reason that fans would have been a little bit more excited about his appointment. Probably for name value alone, he would have been able to ride the storm a bit better. That's not to say that results have helped. Okay, there would still be a pressure on him, and rightly so. Russell Martin had to start well for this to work, for the fans to get on board, and he hasn't done that. And there is nothing there to say Russell Martin's style of player philosophy is going to. I don't see it. I don't see what he's trying to do. We'll get into it during the
I
when we
don't
run
know.
down the game. There's just so much. I know I'm ranting, but I'm not seeing what Russell Martin is. There's the only thing they can say, the board, if they come out tomorrow and say we're keeping him because he's going to install this philosophy. We haven't seen it.
No, that's the overall point I made. The last two things I've said. There's nothing that tells me he's going to improve this. Gerald didn't get results, like I said. I think folks stuck with Gerald because of the performances rather than his name. And I think if Russell Martin got good performances but didn't get results, I think we'd stick with him.
Yeah,
Even the games we won. You mentioned Paul's, and that's the only game. That's the only good game we've had this season.
yeah.
Like Alloa, we won, but I think we all after Alloa went, oh, we conceded 2 goals at home to Alloa, and we're pretty bad.
Rangers
Panathinaikos,
have won 5 of the last 16 home games.
yeah,
Two of those were
Pa-
European. One of those were against Alloa.
exactly. Yeah, Panathinaikos game, which in a spell of 5 minutes won the game. Finley Curtis got some out of nothing, and they got a man sent off. That's what won us the game. And then that's well, then what else do we do after that? And the keeping him in the job, it's gonna cost us a trophy. I mean, that's not it's not counting the league, but the League Cup. We get Hibs away in the Cup next week. League Cup, the Scottish Cup, are only chances are any form of silverware this season, and we need to win silver as a football club. And keeping him for that Hibs game. No, I don't know a single Rangers fan that thinks we're going to get anything against Hibs next week.
Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence to say this is going to work. That you saw the crowd yesterday. You were there. We'll get into the game, but I was taking care of a few things yesterday. I missed the first half hour, and I purposely didn't look at my phone or any sort of correspondence because I was too busy at the time and I couldn't see. But I was like, right, I'll finish this at 3:30. I'll be able to tune in. Hopefully, by then Rangers are maybe a goal or two up. Right, that was my hope going into the game. Delusion more than anything else. Checked my phone, and before I'd even seen a scoreline, there was just a couple of messages from people at the game saying this is toxic. So I knew, right, and then got to half an hour, checked obviously a couple of things, and the kind of people in the row were saying there's no difference, right? Saw the last 15 minutes, watched the game back this morning. That first half was like the players, and we'll get into that, we'll get into different things, but the first half was abysmal. There was nothing there.
No,
Hearts didn't, I don't think Hearts are. I think Hearts are obviously a decent side. I don't think they're. I think they're well coached and well drilled. I don't think their squad is better than Rangers.
no,
But they did not have to play well first half to be going in with the lead because Rangers had absolutely nothing. The only chance I can think of was Asgard hitting the bar,
and that
which
was a
actually a good
cross.
save. That was a good save. Aye, it was a
I think
cross.
it was. I think it was a cross.
There
So
was
I don't think it was a shot.
absolutely
The
nothing in that first
Miovski,
half.
Miovski made an also the
Miovski header.
header in the very
Yeah,
end, but again, that's a half chance.
yeah.
But
And I think the first goal, was a perfect example of this. The defensive worries we had. I actually blame Diamandi. I think Diamandi tracking Shankland. The referee was bad, right? And if you want to hear more about the referee, tune into the ref's view on the channel later this week, where you'll hear a bit more about my thoughts on the refereeing performance. Diamandi tracks Shankland and to the 12 yard to the penalty spot, and then lets him go. It's things like that that's not coaching issues, that's laziness, right? Now the
yeah,
coach, we've said what we want and we'll continue to say about Russell Martin. It's things like that we've how many goals have we seen like that are just bad defensive glitch problems that we had fears of under Russell Martin that are coming home to roost again and again. Every single goal Rangers have conceded this season, in my opinion, has been a culmination of errors.
yeah. We've not conceded a good goal this season,
No,
and we've conceded about 12 of them.
no more than that.
So,
It's 9 in 2 games. No more than that. Surely.
but in the league,
And the
in the
league,
league
aye,
we've
aye, 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 aye.
in the
I
league
get
we've
you.
conceded. We've
Five, I
conceded
think. I
five
think
goals in
it's
the league.
five. Aye, five in the league.
Yeah, but they've all been defensive errors from a culmination of people, whether it's organisation, individual, or the penalty yesterday, which is again Butland's unlucky, but it's a stupid challenge to make it a penalty box.
I think it's
It's
a
a
penalty.
lazy challenge.
I think it's a penalty. I think it's contact. That being said, I'm
Uh,
not excusing that as the reason Rangers lost because Rangers were bad. The referee
mhm.
was terrible. And there's three, even the Rangers goal that should have been. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a foul.
No,
That being said, I'm not going to do what other people do and come on podcast and say, oh, the referee cost us that game. I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is,
no,
though, Rangers defensively under Russell Martin and before that have been abysmal. And there
yeah.
is no fixing that because John Suter, there was a perfect example yesterday I wanted to bring up, which I'm changing the subject a wee bit. John Suter and Giga are getting the ball constantly and they are clearly not comfortable with it. John Suter's trying to drive 70 yards and giving the ball away and then he's out of position. Hearts break in 5 seconds and that space is completely there. Nobody wants the
Yeah.
ball and the centre backs are not comfortable with it.
There was several of them. I remember Cornelius had a good number of them when he came on. He
Yeah,
just put the ball up and he was starting with it, and there
nobody's.
was no movement whatsoever from any whether it's from the midfield, the front line, even the full back, my goalman next to him. There was no movement. Anyone wanting the ball, and I don't know if That look, and if it's the full team, there's no movement from anyone. Then that's coming from the coaching staff. If it's the full team that's the issue, then that's not the players that don't know. I don't know if it's confusion. They get too much information, which is what it looks like, or they're not getting enough. But to me, when the full team, when there's no movement from anyone looking for the ball, that's a management issue.
So there's one. I think there's one of three things at play here in terms of what you just said about information. Martin is either given it or given too much of it, and therefore the players can't take it in. You and I work in quite like big jobs. If your manager's
Hmm.
giving you a lot of information at the one time, you're not taking it in and you're reverting to type, and therefore you're maybe not doing what you're asked to do. Right? That's one thing that I think could be at play. It's either that Martin is not the second thing is either that Martin is not explaining things correctly, which I don't believe is happening because I think we've heard enough of him to know he probably explains things too much and tries to
Hmm.
kind of give you stuff that maybe isn't the case, or the players are not doing what he's asking to do. Now, either one of those three scenarios is terrible for the simple reason that it's meaning that the team isn't functioning.
Yeah.
Whatever is being put out there is not, they are not able to do it. Like, he spent the entire time going, I'm going to play with this one in midfield and two wide centre midfielders. Fixes it against Celtic, which I think worked quite well. And then is it get this weird mix of plays Barron there and Diamande Asgard. Asgard comes out during the week and says, I'm better as a wide left. He's playing on wide right. The Gassama thing, I said to you during the Celtic game, what the hell are you doing with that? You're Gassama, who, again, maybe blows a hot and cold. I don't think he's going to be this consistent superstar that we maybe thought he was going to be. I think he will blow hot and cold. Clearly better in the left than he is in the right. You bring in Ant Man for 3.5 million quid. You play Moore in the right, left, and Gassama in the right. Clearly doesn't work against Celtic. It works once. Moore, you keep that in place against Hearts. Again, doesn't work. You change it. Moore just looks completely exactly what he is, an 18-year-old who looks like the jersey's too big for him, right? I think we can all say that might take a bit of time and maybe better coaching. There's just so many things here that is completely away from what we thought we were getting under Russell Martin. And what we had to convince ourselves was what Russell Martin was going to do. No Scottish teams are playing a low block against Rangers anymore because they know they can create chances. They know they can press the defenders and get something. So all this that the board are saying we need to stick with this guy because he's going to implement this style. That style's gone.
No.
There's nothing
There's
there.
you saying so you touch on the wingers, which is somehow I don't know if there's been a picture going about online of players' average positions throughout the game.
Yeah,
It's literally a straight line through the middle.
yeah,
There's no width. And
no.
you look at our team, Tav's been our best player for the last 10 years. Gisama's been our best player this season. Moore is very highly rated. Down, if you ask anyone down south, they all
Yeah.
think Mikey Moore's going to be the next best thing. You've got Goma, who, to be fair, actually hasn't
I
looked
think
bad
he's
since
been
he came
okay.
in.
Yeah, I think he's looked
He's
okay.
been, so that's probably our four strongest players are wide, but the two fullbacks and the two wingers, and they're so narrow.
Yeah.
All four of them. They're so narrow in the middle of the park. You talk about these inverted fullback things. The fullbacks go in the
He's
middle.
abandoned that as
That
well.
they, I don't know if they have because you talk about how narrow the fullbacks
Yeah,
are.
but
So
it's
they're in
not
the
an
middle of
inverted
the
fullback
park.
because
They're in the middle of
they're
the
not a spare
park.
man.
So
Yeah,
you expect your wingers to be wide,
yeah,
but the wingers are in the middle now.
correct.
So there's no width, and that's exactly what Derek McKinnon team wants. He wants you in the middle so they can break down the sides, which is how they get the first goal. Shankland run down the channel. So I don't understand what he's doing. He says, "Oh, we don't see the team winning in training. The league's not winning training. The league's winning in 90 minutes on a Saturday. And if you're no converting that for the training ground onto the pitch on a Saturday, then what is the issue in the go in the in between? Is it pressure? Is it he keeps using the word anxiety, which was an issue at
Which
MK
yeah,
Dons,
he's used that before.
Swansea, and Southampton. So that's bollocks and all. So I'm just I was so baffled sitting the ground yesterday. And by the way, the ground is the most toxic I've ever seen
Yeah, I
Ibrox.
was going to get
It
into
was
that.
bad.
Yeah,
and it
I,
was deservedly bad.
yeah, I was at the Alloa game and I could feel that as well. Like I even, and the other thing as well is, and this is something I was in a conversation with somebody about today. When you're at a game of football, right, and one of my biggest arguments is, listening to me and other podcasts is I feel football is becoming very boring now. Right? I think the entertainment of football is becoming quite redundant, right? There's not a lot of entertainment when you watch games of football. You're at your work Monday to Friday, right? Earning cash, earning money to pay your bills. You're also earning money to be entertained at the weekend and your days off. Now, one of that for 50,000 people every weekend is going to Ibrox or going away or watching the game at home, wherever you watch it. And I can't think of, apart from maybe four or five, a handful of times over the past 3 or 4 years, watching a Rangers game and being entertained by how Rangers have played, right? And there's
Yep.
people out there spending thousands of pounds a year. That's why the ground is toxic, because not just in terms of results and not just in terms of the fact they didn't want the manager, they feel as if they're passing money up against the wall because they're not getting value for money.
Yeah.
That's something that's going unnoticed. Now, the longer this goes, the longer those fans will be. I'm not wasting my time with this anymore. I'm not giving them. Do you know what I mean? I think the crowd next Saturday will be 30,000. Lucky if that.
I think we'll be lucky at 25k.
It's
I'll be at the Hibs game purely off the bat I bought my ticket. I would
yeah,
have paid for my ticket. If I hadn't paid for my ticket, I'd question it. But
yeah,
I have already bought my ticket, so I will be going not to wait. So I don't waste like 30, I think it's 30 quid or something.
exactly. But then that's another point as well. You lose 6-0 away in Belgium, and then a couple of days after that, they're already trying to get Europa League packages, right?
Yeah.
It's things like that, and this is where the kind of new guys have got to look at. And there's still old guys in the board who have been down this road before. They have seen this happening exactly what we're seeing just now. This doesn't end well. This doesn't. There is no circumstance in which this will be turned around for the simple reason Russell Martin could win his next 20 games as Rangers manager, and they could be in a better position. The minute they lose the next game, a lot of the fans will revert to type for the simple reason they didn't want him.
Yeah. Though
That's my
I
point.
do think if we had started better, because I remember between the appointment and the Panathinaikos game, a lot of people would turn around, including myself. I'm going to chuck myself in this as well. Because I think Rangers done a very smart thing during the summer of putting out as much content as they can
Yeah,
involving Russell Martin.
yeah.
His interviews, his pressers, the training. I remember watching it all and thinking, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I remember he done a few interviews with Rangers TV, he spoke very well, I thought.
He is a good communicator. It's just when it
He
gets
obviously is, because
bad.
he managed to get the job.
Yeah,
So he must have interviewed well, because he's the worst manager in Premier League history. Swansea were mid-table. He took, I think it was the third most expensive squad in Championship history and got lucky in the playoffs to get up. So he obviously interviews well if he managed to get the job. So he obviously does speak. And he managed to persuade a lot of the players and spoke to the manager, put the project in front of them. So he managed to sign all these players. He managed to get the job. So obviously he speaks well. It's just that going from doing well in interviews to doing well at park has not translated at all.
yeah. And this is before we'll get into Raskin and the kind of transfer window. A couple of things I want to bring up about the kind of transfer window and Thelwell later on. But just in terms of the game, obviously makes the change at half time. He brings on Ant-Man for Moore. I thought Ant-Man was pretty good when he came on. Thought it was lively. There's definitely something there. And that's what I wanted to bring up. I feel as if there is something to work with this squad. I think
I was
recruitment
going to bring up the same thing.
mostly has been good. I think there's a couple of players that I'm not sure about, like Aidens, for example. Like we'll get into Chermiti later on because I wanted to kind of bring that up. But I think there's a couple of players I've got my doubt on. But like I thought Asgard was good. I think I've quite liked what I've seen with him so far. Miofsky, I think, can do a job. Magoma, as we mentioned. I think there's enough there. Even Cornelius, I think there's enough there in terms of a working squad. But that's not the issue. But again, we've seen, like, obviously we're recording this on Sunday. Like we've seen early on, like Sheffield United have pulled the trigger in their manager. They've deemed that
Yeah.
results aren't good enough. Leverkusen, Ten Hag. Do you know what I mean? Relatively big clubs If it's not
And for the
working,
level for this like they're
yeah,
at,
if it's not working, you can make the decision that we've made a mistake, right? Doesn't look great, but it's better to do it quickly for the simple reason that you retain that goodwill with support. Now, I think Patrick Stewart, I think the fact he's been here and done this before, I think he's under a more sugary peg than Thelwell for the simple reason that I think he's done very little to convince so far. Like
yeah,
I mean, Thelwell still early days, but I think we'll get into the Chermity thing, which I think is Thelwell written all over it. But there's just a lot there in terms of the both have to act. But who makes the call? Because we're hearing Thelwell and Stewart will make the call if there's a managerial change. But I would imagine that Kavanagh and Marathi have a say of some kind.
yeah. If Kavanagh and Marathi want him gone, he will be gone
Mm-hmm.
because they are above Stuart and Thelwell.
Yeah.
Stuart and Thelwell, I think Stuart and Thelwell. If he's going to get sacked, it'll be Stuart and Thelwell's call. But if it becomes untenable, which an argument it already is, then and they two still want to keep him, but Kavanagh's looking at this going, no, he needs to go. He
Mm-hmm.
will go.
Yeah.
I I do think there's a lot of talent in this squad.
They're really,
Like
yeah.
like
Like I thought
like
the
our
bench yesterday. I thought the bench yesterday. Like, I looked at it and thought that's probably the stronger bench I've seen Rangers have in a long time.
yeah. Like Cornelius is a Canadian starting centre half. Look at plays with international duty.
Yeah,
Asgard's got a hat trick for Norway,
four,
for example.
four. Don't
Four.
underestimate that.
Mike apparently every club in the dog wanted Mikey Moon this summer, but we got him. Miofsky scored a boatload of goals in his league before. Gesama, everyone loved him when we signed him. Diamandi was linked with £10 million moves. McGomez starts for England under 21s, I think it is,
Yeah,
under 19s. Jigga was bought for £10 million. Like, the signings in the summer on paper look
there's
decent.
enough. Yeah, there's enough there
But
to work with. It's just you need the right
yeah,
fit
but
and
I
you need
just
the
think they're
yeah.
being coached horrifically. Joe Rothwell was one of the key players for Leeds when they get promoted last
He was
season.
really good when he came on, and then
Aye, for
typically
the
gets
five
injured.
minutes, then you realise he
Yeah,
ran too much and done his knee.
yeah, like,
Great.
that kind of sums it up, doesn't it, as well? Like the first, I thought it was okay early stages, but clearly I think his fitness is an issue. But it shows enough in the kind of 5 minutes time, right? There might be something there in a certain way, does his knee, and you might not see him for a while. Let's get into Raskin, right? Because I think it's an important thing to bring up because there's clearly an issue there that we don't know about, right? There's stories going about, and again, I think there's a lot of things that are going about that are ridiculous. But from what we understand, there is clearly some sort of issue there that's been brewing for a while. That means he is not in the team. Whether that's he wanted to leave, whether that's Rangers wanted him to leave. That story's going about. He's been very vocal about how he feels about his role in the side. As other things I've heard. There's a lot of things going about that we don't know is
His
true or not.
dad, I think
The thing with
the
his
vibe
dad
I
as
get
well.
is his dad. Dad's no helped it.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly something there between manager and player. The problem with it is, and we can argue whether Raskin is as good as people make him out to be, right? Which I think we both agree. I think he was a very shining light of a bad team last season, right?
Yeah.
That being said, Russell Martin does not have the goodwill to win this battle, right?
No.
You really must win of must wins. I don't care if Nicholas Raskin has has made a mess in his. I don't care what it is. You have to play your best players if they're available.
Yeah.
If you lose that game, which he has, the first question will be: would you have won that game if Nico Raskin played? Right. We'll get into the presser in a minute, but I was surprised that was hardly asked. But the presser looked a bit of a mess by all accounts. We'll get into that, but
Yeah.
this is not a battle that Raskin, because the fans won't back Martin here.
No.
They view a very talented player in their eyes sitting in his house during the Celtic game, goes away by international duty and scores for Belgium, who are going to be playing in the World Cup. He will be looking to be a part of that World Cup squad. There is no way that Martin wins this battle because he doesn't have the goodwill with the support.
No. If you look at manager v player battles in the past, how many times did the manager win?
They only win if they have the goodwill with the support and the goodwill that, and they point out what the player's done, and that
The only
hasn't
one I can
happened.
think of that the managers won. If you look at Pedro v Kenny Miller, Pedro was sacked. Miller played the next game, scored a brace
Yeah,
at Murrayfield. Go back to Le Guin and Barry.
against Ferguson. Yeah,
The only one I can think of off the top of my head, the manager one was Warburton v Barton, where Barton never played again after that 5-1
yeah,
game.
yeah.
I think that was a lot. I think there was a lot of. I think it was
Oh,
opposing characters
yeah, there
with
was that,
Warburton and
that
Barton.
was never going to work. But I
No.
get where you're coming from. I can see that. Yeah,
So, and again, you talk Warburton just got us up, and so there was still that little bit of goodwill with Warburton, even though I started to go downhill after that five. Personally, I started to go question him after that 5-1 game. Majority of the fans were still Team Warburton at that point. So, yeah, as you said, there's no way the fans were against Russell Martin before this Raskin thing because
yeah.
Raskin played that 6-0 game, and the fans wanted him out during that first half. So Raskin wasn't isolated at the picture before the
That's kind of
pressure
what
started
started it. He
mounting.
didn't play that
Martin,
game, but there was
yeah,
the Motherwell thing. I think was the Motherwell thing seems to be the catalyst, and there's obviously the chat about the league teams, which we don't know if that's the case. But
but again, Martin
this,
didn't really seem to be asked about the league team. I think
and
he's the kind of person that maybe would say he was more annoyed at the league team during it, but he didn't really seem bothered that the team was leaked. So I can't. I don't think that is it.
no,
But
I
obviously we don't know
think
what it is, so it
yeah,
might
we
be that.
don't know. And again, if you're saying if anybody's saying that they know about it, they're not. It's not true. That they are. There is stuff that
No,
there's nothing that has been publicised about it that is common knowledge. The problem with this is though, if Raskin comes straight back into the team against Hibs, it just asks the question is what was the point in this? Like
yeah,
clearly didn't want to go. I am under the suspicion that I think he didn't want Martin maybe wanted to move him on. Raskin was digging his heels in. Has that made things worse? I don't know. Again, we're speculating, purely speculating what's happened here. But what my overall point with this is though, this is just another smokescreen that isn't needed, that is completely self-inflicted, that just adds further fuel to the fire that this is just not going to work. Because you say quite rightly, the manager very rarely wins that battle because
yeah,
the player is definitely going to be there until at least January. There is no guarantee Russell Martin is going to be in this job till January. So the
no,
balance of power lies with the player here because if you keep him out the squad until January, you're keeping a prized asset on the shelf. He's
just the
sitting in the
window on his
bench,
value.
just dwindling his value. So you're not helping the club. You're not helping the player. As you said, the player wants to go to a World Cup. He's not going to go there sitting on
No,
the bench. I saw that there was this thing as well. There was Newcastle fans saying this about Isak. Oh, he's not going to want to sit on the bench during the World Cup. The difference is Isak is going to go to the World Cup if he plays for Sweden, right? If
yeah,
Sweden qualify, doesn't matter if he's sitting on the bench. He's too good not to go to the World Cup. Raskin's not. Raskin doesn't have that credibility yet. He's not guaranteed to play for Belgium at the World Cup,
Belgium
right?
got a
So
lot of good midfielders. Obviously, Tielemans,
yeah,
De Bruyne, that
exactly.
kind of.
But Raskin needs to play football. Raskin makes that midfield better, in my opinion, being a part
Oh
of the
yeah,
squad.
easy.
There's just not that credibility for the manager to win this fight. So it needs to be addressed. It needs to be fixed. Apparently, it has been fixed. Why is he not in the team on Saturday? Clearly, match
Yeah,
fixed. He played for Belgium.
it was good. This is sort of going on from your point. What does Martin think this is going to achieve?
I don't know.
Is it a case of using Raskin to sort of put his foot down with the rest of the squad in terms of, oh, I've done this to our best player, I can do it to either one of you. You need to fight for me because that's not
But
working
it just
because it
creates an
didn't work
atmosphere with
against
the
Hick.
players. It just creates an atmosphere
Exactly.
and a fear in the players that we're seeing on the park because he's saying how
And
anxious they
Raskin's
are.
obviously, based on everything I've seen on social media and the TikTok and the YouTube and everything else, Raskin's very well liked within the squad. And Raskin's been a hell of a longer than Martin has. So, and all these players look at Raskin, you're playing for Belgium. You're playing with De Bruyne. You're playing with top players. You're playing with top players at national. What's Russell Martin done in football? So the players will look at Raskin and think, "I'm going to side with this guy because he was the best player last season compared to Russell Martin."
But again, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, this shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be having a battle in the middle of September, 2 months after he's taken the job, going, "Oh, you either side with the player or the manager." It shouldn't be happening.
No, it just
It's just
creates a massive divide.
Aye, it's just
Not within the
nonsense.
fan base, because for some fair play to Russell Martin, actually, he's managed to unite the fan base. I've never seen the Rangers fan base this united over one
Nah,
topic.
but again, that when it's as toxic as it is, it's not going to end
No,
well, because a lot of fans, including us, feel it's too late for the board to have any goodwill once they make the change, because they have to make it. They can't keep this
yeah,
going. I speak about it all the time, and as people who know me and Scott do a Premier League show. What did I say about Harry Maguire syndrome? Harry Maguire could have 7 of the best games in the world and look like the next coming of Franz Beckenbauer. It's when he makes that next mistake, we'll revert to type and go, by the way, what we thought about him years ago is true. He's not that very good. This is going to keep happening. He's not going to. It's not going to change,
no,
because
it's really not.
Rangers played 5 league games, haven't won any of them. 9 points behind Celtic and Hearts after 5 games. That in itself is a sackable offence for any Rangers manager, right? No matter what happens, people have said about the worst start since 1978, and I saw somebody messaged me today say, "Oh, John Gregg had a bad start." John Gregg was a Rangers led. John Gregg had won a European trophy with Rangers as a player. He had the
Yeah,
credibility with the support to go, right, okay, this might take a wee while. John Gregg wasn't coming out in 1978 going, "Oh, there's going to be short-term pain," because he knew what the club was about. He knew what the values represented. Now, you know me quite well. You know I can get sick fed up of the fan base at times, but how toxic they are, dismissing players after 2 minutes in the park. Like, I think things like that are nonsense. Trying to pointing at players after a game, things like that are just stupid. But the majority of the fan base have got this right. They didn't want Martin to begin with. They saw the concerns that we had. We had concerns from a football point of view that the worries we watched last year at Southampton, if he comes here and does that, this isn't going to work. We're seeing that. We're not even seeing that because the style of play isn't there. I mean, he was playing decent football against Man City, right? But they were still getting picked apart. But Rangers are getting picked apart defensively and not playing the attacking football. So this is not going to
yeah,
work.
no, it's really not. Like, the question I look up is, how many sitters have we missed this season? I can't think of any.
No, because we haven't created enough chances.
That
I
that's
haven't scored a lot of goals for open play that I can think of.
that's
Not
the point I'm going. We've Curtis against St Mirren to an extent. I know it's for a corner, but
There's a
it
bit
came
of
from the edge of the
ricochet,
box.
yeah.
But other than that, like, we scored 3 goals and 2 of them was a header for a corner and a penalty from Tav. And we're still reliant on James Tavernier in the year 2025.
But again, like, what is the idea? Like, as I say, like yesterday, even Asgard and Gassama were creating a little bit, but how many times was it just reverting to getting the ball into the box?
Yep.
Hearts have 3 defenders over 6 foot tall. Who
In
will eat
terms
that?
of
Eat that for lunch?
in terms of big chances missed, only St Mirren have created less. We've missed 3 big chances this season, same as Dundee. But the perspective, Celtic have missed 11
Yeah,
and
that was
Hibs
another
have
thing.
missed
That's
9.
another thing as well. He comes out and says Rangers had created, what was it, the most amount of shots.
Yeah, that's nonsense. According to Fort Mob here.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like, one of the
No,
most annoying stats in the world is possession. Rangers had what? How much possession? I'm just looking at the stats briefly. Rangers had 66.5 possession, right? How much of that is just knocking the pass sideways or backwards because there's no forward out ball?
it's all between Suter and Jagger.
One of the most annoying things at the early stage of the seasons was when Suter was constantly trying to find Dessers with the ball. Suter was playing the pass either too short or too quick, or he was playing it into Dessers. Dessers couldn't control it, and they kept doing it, right? The ball retention is fine if you're creating chances from it. Rangers created 5 shots in target. I can't remember a big save the Hearts goalie had to make off the top of my head.
No,
I don't
He
remember
tipped the one
Schmeichel
out the
having to
bar,
make
but
many
again, I
saves.
think that was a cross.
I don't remember Schmeichel having to make many saves in the Celtic game. I don't
No, we didn't
remember.
have a shot on target.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is just not working. Now that gets to how long can the board and Thelwell and Stewart keep this going? Overall, window wise, Rangers made a lot of signings. One of the signings, obviously, they made was Yusuf Chermiti, who is the second biggest outlay Rangers have ever made. We have spoke about this privately. Rangers spending £8 million on a player is what Rangers will probably be doing for the next 3 or 4 years, right? And they probably should be doing it because they should be getting into a better habit of a player trading model.
Yeah.
The problem with this signing is, and I'll be the first to come on here, if Yusuf Chermiti scores 25 goals this season and goes for 20, 30 million quid, I'll be the first on here to say I was wrong about this signing. Rangers aren't in a position at the moment to spend 8 million quid on a Premier League striker who scored 3 goals in 7 years as a professional footballer. Right? Rangers could have spent that money better, right? For the simple reason, 8 million quid probably gets you what, two and a half, £3 million players who probably have more of less of a risk to a degree because Chermiti is very much in the redemption stage of his career where he's had the big move of his career and it hasn't worked. So he's now in the stage to try and get himself back to a level to get another big move. Whereas if you go, let's just say the boy Turkman, right? I know that deal was done for about 5 million quid. There's far more in that because you've got a raw kind of talent that you can nurture who isn't yet who will the fan base will have a bit more leniency with and they won't be immediately going, this is 8 million quid and Thelwell's made this signing before. It's weird. It's not good behaviour for a club at this point.
No, it did make the link. The original link was on loan. That made less sense.
That was another thing.
But
There was every player Rangers were linked with this summer had there's another club interested. They will have to beat such and such. Wasn't that with Trinity?
no, but the point I was making was the original link to him was on loan. Everyone
Yeah,
said it'll be a loan.
yeah.
And then randomly, I know it's permanent. And then when I saw permanent, I thought, how much money are we spending on him? Because Everton spent £13 million on him for
Sport
Sporting.
Lisbon.
Aye. And that caught and then we're thinking so I'm thinking they're gonna want a decent chunk of their money back that they paid
Yeah.
for him. So what do they see in him that makes you think, yeah, he's the man? Because you spent half the money on Miovski, and I would rather have Miovski starting at the moment.
The thing is
I
as
know
well
Miovski
though,
didn't look great, but he's proven in this league that he can score goals.
the problem is though, Chermiti is probably an £8 million player in terms of value because he's been at a Premier League squad, right? It's just is that the right choice with that money at this point in time?
No,
That's my problem
especially
with
when
it.
there's gaps, especially a big gap at left back.
Yeah.
There's a gap in the middle of the park. And to be fair, we did need another striker, but we could have done with
You could
let's
have
say
done all of that for 8 million quid as opposed to one
exactly. You
Chermiti.
could have
Yeah.
got three of those players for 8 million with
Yeah.
decent scouting and not shopping it. We signed one player out, no, sorry, two players outside of England. I think we made 12 signings over the summer, and two of them went from England.
Yeah. And the entire
Miovski
back the
and
entire
Atman.
back line the entire back line with the exception of Fernandez is likely not going to be here next season.
Exactly. And that's a massive issue. And there's
Yeah.
a free agent. There's some left back free agents out there we could be looking at, but we haven't heard anything that tells me we're looking at, for example, Reguilon. I know he's on decent wage. He's a free agent at the moment. Jamal Lewis is English. He's a free agent at the moment. We could have went in for someone like Josh Doig. Max Johnson went to Derby. We could have looked at. I know he's a right back, but point still stands. We could have looked at him as a permanent fullback signing, but obviously we didn't. So yeah, the short term planning surrounding our defence is such an issue. And if you look at any success, look at the team we won the league. I think we scored 92 goals that season and conceded 13. The season after, sorry, 2 seasons after when it was Beale and Gio, We actually scored more goals that season we did when we won the league, but we conceded nearly 40. If you want to win a league title, you need to sort the back line out.
Yeah.
And we haven't. We signed Aaron's on loan, Jega on loan, Cornelius on loan to he's got an option, but McComa on loan, Suter's out of contract, Tab's out of contract, Davies is out of contract. I know he's on loan, but he's out of contract next summer. So that leaves us with total of one player that's going to be at the moment part of our backline next season, and he's a Peterborough centre half who Peterborough fans didn't rate.
Right, before we wrap up, is there any positives to take? Is there anything to be optimistic about for the viewers? Have we got anything to leave them on a positive note? Because I'm not. I'm struggling. I do think, as we say, I do think even if Rangers do beat Hibs, right? Which again, I watched Hibs Dundee United. Hibs are better to watch than Rangers. Hibs will get chances against Rangers. If Rangers win, it doesn't fix this. As we said, like it doesn't change this because the damage has been done. Like the Hearts game was the last point of this might start a recovery. That's gone. Hibs, you might get through in the next round. It's just going to kick the can further down the road because it was like, why is that? The performance, unless there's an absolute majestic performance, which I don't see because I haven't seen it so far. It's not going to change anything. There is a squad there to work with. There is the ability to nurture that squad into. I think the league's probably got 9 points is ridiculous at this stage of the season. Like I don't care what Hindy says. Celtic aren't good, but 9 points at this stage is ridiculous. There might be a little bit of recovery, but it can't be under Russell Martin.
No. And I'm currently looking at the odds for the next manager, and they don't look. And the list of people here isn't great. I'll read you some of the names.
I've heard some.
I'll read you. Sean Dyche is currently the favourite. Steven Gerrard, Danny Rowe, Gary O'Neill, Jose Mourinho, Barry Ferguson, Michael Carrick, Nuno, Chris Wilder, Muscat, Rose, and McInnes. Out of that list, I think there's 3, maybe 4. I'd look at. It's not going to happen, but Jose Mourinho will be a lot of fun. It won't happen, but it'd be a lot of fun. The pressers alone. Nuno would get us organised. I'll give him that.
Sean Dyche would win games, but it's completely opposite of what the board are. The board wanted someone to with the style of play. The only one in that list that I think would maybe do it is Danny Rowe. But I'm not. I think Danny Rowe's probably got a bigger fish to fry at the moment.
Is Danny Rowe? I was having a conversation with someone, but Danny Rowe, they brought the name up. Has Danny Rowe done anything in management that tells you he's a better manager than Russell Martin?
No, but that's what I'm trying to say. That's again, that Russell Martin's probably got a better CV than Danny Rowe, but Danny Rowe doesn't have the baggage Russell Martin does. Danny Rowe will at least excite the support to a degree because there's a wee bit of what can he do? We've seen glimpses. I mean, it's more.
I think the issue with someone like Danny Rowe more is we've tried a number of them, but project managers don't work.
But this is a long term project. It's just got the wrong guy in it just now. I'm more than happy to go with a long term project thing. Just it's clearly not the right guy at the moment, and we knew that. You can't have a long term project and they start badly.
My issue with going on another long term project is it hasn't really been spoken about, and I don't know if it should be spoken about at this point. But they're a lot closer to 10 in a row than we think they are. And we cannot get to the point where it's 9 again and we've got one season to stop it. We can't get to that point like we did last time. We need to stop them going for 10 now before it pushes on. And that's why someone like Josie, who comes in for a season, maybe 2, wins a league or 2 and stops their run, and then he's built a foundation of players and a winning mentality. For someone like Danny Rowe or someone like that to come in and build I think they've kind of done the backwards of what they should have done. They should have brought someone in that's going to build a foundation for a project manager and they've sort of started with the project manager, it's failed, and then they could go into a winner, a short-term winner. And I think they've done the opposite of what they should have.
Right, we will be back next week, but hopefully we're talking about a victory. Are we going to have a new manager this time next week? I would say no. I think this
No,
will
because I think
continue.
if he was going to get sacked, he would have done today.
Yeah, but mate, always a pleasure. I know it's not the best of circumstances, but I think it was very good therapy for the both of us. Thanks as always.
Nah, I was going to say it was a pleasure, but
It was therapeutic, mate. Thank you very much, folks. We will see you all soon. We will have stuff going out over the week with Rangers, so follow that. Thank you very much. We'll see you all next week.